Well, good morning, everyone. It is Mindset Monday. I'm Denise, Zack with Game Plan U today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't tuned in yet, I'm hoping you'll watch this a little bit later on. Um, I am here to get into the 6 inches in between the ears of people who are doing amazing things. I love to talk to people who are out there, doing amazing, wonderful work, who are impacting the world, who are making a difference in this world, but also really who have a story to tell and who have great history and who have something that they may have struggled with, or they have something that they can teach us through their experiences in the world. And that's why we're here, because we all need support. We all need to hear how other people are succeeding. We all need to hear how other people are getting through challenges. And so I just want to thank you all for being here today. And we're going to get started today. I am so excited because I have got an amazing, amazing guest here today. Someone who is near and dear to my heart because I've known him over the last year or so. Mike Mooney is going to be joining us today. He's got a long history. He's someone who has been in NASCAR. He is a coach. He's a consultant. He's a inspirational keynote speaker. He's pretty much doing it all and doing it all impeccably great. So I'm going to bring him on today, and he's going to chat with us and tell us his story. So, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning, Denise.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm feeling better after that very generous intro that you gave me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I'm just grateful that you're here. I just every time we connect, I'm very just impressed by what you do, but I really just value what you have to add to discussions, and all the work that you do just brings such incredible value to I think just the people in your life. I know that you've impacted me, and so I'm just grateful that you're here. So I appreciate that.
Denise, thank you. And I feel the same. I mean, it's not easy what you're doing to show up, every week and put these productions together, but the value and the benefit of having people share their stories and what that can do for others, not only for their mindsets, but for just getting through their days sometimes, especially in today's world. I mean, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. And
You're welcome.
About our relationship. It's been so great having you in my circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. So let's dive in, right? Let's just dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us what you do, kind of how you got there, your story, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I'll start with what I was doing, and then maybe that'll help bridge to where I am today. I've spent the last 25 years of my career in motorsports, in professional motorsports, in NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, primarily working with the athletes and the teams, the leagues and the sponsors, and helping bring those sponsorships, those multi-million-dollar sponsorships to life. And more importantly, having them come to life in a way that was credible and authentic and relevant to the brand to help then drive the return for those multi-million-dollar sponsorships. And absolutely loved it. I mean, absolutely had an incredible career. Loved the opportunity to work with brands like Mercedes-Benz and Sprint, Sunoco, Walmart, Tylenol, Eli Lilly, just some amazing organizations to be associated with and learn from. But I had a seed planted in me on July 8th, 2006 that I just couldn't shake. And it took me from that date until January of 2017. It was when I decided that, you know what, I could do this job for a long time and I loved it, but I didn't feel like it was really living the life that I was really designed to live. Quite honestly, I felt like I was sleepwalking. Have you ever felt that way? Where you can do it and you love it, you're passionate, but it's just not the joy that deep down you're supposed to be finding, right? And that's what led me to making this career pivot that, quite honestly, was something I never thought I would do, because all of my relational equity was wrapped up in an industry. My name, the work, everything I did was in this space. And to actually jump out into a new world where I would be speaking and coaching and consulting, was something that really, you talk about mindset and things of that nature, I really had to dig into. So, where I ended up working toward, Denise, in this is that um, a lot of my work in motorsports was tied back to protecting, strengthening, and rehabbing reputations. And that became the basis of a book that I wrote for individuals like us. While I was doing it for teams and corporations, it's really about the people, right? That reputations tie back to, because it's our actions and our decisions and interactions that impact reputation. So I started with that message and went out speaking on reputation and the power of reputation. And that's then evolved over the past couple of years to speaking around, talking on the power of mindset, on brand, building our personal brands, influence, and things of that nature. So that's what I'm doing now.
I love it. I love the shift. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, what that date, what is September 8th of 2006? What was that seed that was planted way back then, and who planted it?
Interesting. Okay, so we'll go a little deep on that then. Yeah, so that was it was July 8th, 2006, and I had previously been running the marketing communications for the Nextel Cup sponsorship, for the Nextel Cup series for NASCAR.
Yeah.
One of the largest sports sponsorships in history at the time. I really valued myself through the commas in my paycheck, the title on my business card, the sway that I had around people. And we had at Nextel, we had just been acquired by Sprint. And as that had happened, my position was eliminated. It was the, hey, thanks, but you're no longer needed.
Wow.
And that was the first time in my life that I had ever been told, we don't need you anymore, and I was really in a place where I didn't know what I was going to do. And Denise, the more that I tried to make things happen, the more I tried to control the opportunities and where I wanted to go next, the more just it turned to crap. It's sort of like, I make the analogy of trying to cup sand. Like the more you try to put in your hands, the more it seems to fall out and spill through. So I was literally on my knees that night, because I had, family, 3 small children, didn't know what I was going to do next. Nothing was working according to my plan. And I was literally on my knees, and I just looked up and I was like, Creator, just, it's just too much. And if you tell me what to do, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Just tell me, And Denise, in that moment, I heard one voice, and it was in my chest. It wasn't in my head. So I knew it wasn't like my monkey mind messing with me, but it was right here. And it was one word: speak.
Wow.
And I said, okay, great. But, about what? A little more would be really helpful, So I went to bed that night, and the next morning I got up, and around 9 a.m, I got a call from a buddy of mine I had lunch with the day before. He worked at Hendrick Motorsports at the time. And he said, Mike, I don't know why I didn't think about this at lunch yesterday, but it hit me last night when I was getting ready for bed that this motorsports association that I'm involved with, we need a speaker for next month. Would you come speak? And it wasn't like, would you come talk? Would you give a presentation? I mean, it was,
The
will
word.
you speak? And I kind of laughed and looked up, and I said, I can't say no. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. What do you want me to talk about? He's like, whatever you want to. And that's when I started thinking about this power of reputation. Now in 2006, social media wasn't what was today. Like, Facebook was like 3 months old. Twitter was not even around, but
Wow.
I just saw this shift in how reputations for companies had to be managed differently because of the consumer engagement now. So anyhow, that's how it started,
Wow.
and I thought I was going to get out and do it. I got that talk led to another big keynote and another big keynote. And I'm like, all right, I'm going. But I just got this nudge to say, no, you still have more work to do. You still have more people to meet, So that's what I did those last, 10 plus years of just continuing to refine and build relationships and experience and build the material that led me to that place of like, okay, it's time to go.
Yeah. So for you, there was something that you wanted to create. If you were going to do this, you wanted to do 100%. So that's telling me a little bit about your kind of your desire to really be effective and to get the message out and get it out the right way and make it polished and make sure people are going to, really, really take something away from it. And so I've watched your reels. I've listened to you talk in our meetings and stuff, and I can say without a doubt that you've polished it. You know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. It's a great message, and I think we learn a lot from the research that we do, from the writing that we do, from the observing that we do. But in my heart of hearts, I also believe that we learn a lot from our failures or our missteps or our challenges, things that are kind of thrown at us. And it sounds to me like that time when the company said to you, "Hey, we don't need you anymore," that was one of those moments, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's funny, Denise. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately, just given the end of the year and being, reflective on where I've been and the journey where I want to go. And it really dawned on me that the times in my life where I've had the greatest opportunities show up were the times that that started with "I give up," where I've just been like, it hasn't worked the way I thought it was, or I was just at the end and ready to kind of just like throw it in and just say, forget it. And then like a door would crack open. And, I learned early on in my life, I've had these experiences. And that's what I think is important about reflecting in our lives, where I looked back at like 3 or 4 key points where I was at that place and a door cracked and I got comfortable being uncomfortable by walking through it. And by walking through it, something amazing opened up that I would never have imagined, dreamed, or expected.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point that you talk about, because we get comfortable with being comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't
Yeah.
want to make those changes. We're afraid to take that risk. We're afraid to open that door or cross that threshold. And so what do you say to someone who says, "You know what, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, or gosh, that's terrifying." What do you say?
Whew. I would say that if it's something that's deep in your heart and something that with all of your belief in being, you think is something that's pulling and nudging you. And I'm not speaking to you as much as like change your career. It could be, going after an opportunity. It could be writing a book. It could be stepping into a relationship, in some way that, faith and fear ask us to do the same thing.
Mm,
And that's to believe in something we can't see. Right.
mm,
And you can take faith any way you'd like to. Like I'm very much a spiritual person, but that could be faith in yourself, faith in your abilities, faith in your track record that you're going to continue to be successful, right? But I would just encourage people that it takes just as much energy and effort and headspace to believe in the negative as it would be in the positive. The challenge is that we're hardwired to go automatically to the negative, which keeps us in a safe zone, right? And that just goes back to the prehistoric days, where it's about survival, and that's really all the mind is here to do, is to keep us alive. It's not to specifically help us thrive and grow. Now it can when we kick it into gear, but at its base, it's going to keep us in that negative. Don't go. Even though you're comfortable and this sucks, it probably beats what's out there because I don't know what's there.
right. It keeps you safe.
Yeah.
In that kind of primal, like you said, centuries old kind of wiring that we have, which I 150% agree with. And we are much less likely to take a risk for something good,
Yeah.
as we are to avoid a risk because something bad could happen. So I completely agree.
And there's a difference between being methodical and impulsive.
Mm,
And that's something that I'd really encourage people to think through when they're thinking about making a change or a pivot or a shift in their life, whatever it might be. Is I did a lot of studying, and probably maybe a little more than I needed to, on the people who went out and went after their dreams. And the interesting thing, Denise, that I found out was that failure wasn't at the top of the list of what their concerns was or what they were anxious about. What was right up there at the top was not being prepared for when the opportunity came.
Mm.
Right. So think about that. Think how frustrating that could be, where you have something in your heart and the opportunity comes, but you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I'll just say, like, from my experience, like, I knew like this time was coming. I didn't know when. I honestly didn't know. So the last 5 years of my career in motorsports, 3 of those years I spent getting myself ready. And that wasn't just in my head space and my heart space. That was also talking to my wife and saying, "Hun, if we do this, we need to lower our overhead. We need to like pay our debt off. You may have to like go back to work so we have insurance and the benefits and coverage we need." And we did all those things. We sold our house, we downsized, we paid the debt off. We did those things so that, when the time was going to come, we could make it happen.
Yeah.
So it takes that. It does take being somewhat methodical in it.
Sure.
From my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a founder, someone who's going to be, taking a leap into something that you've developed and you feel 150% responsible for, and then there's some weight that comes along with that, that's your mitigated risk, right? It's not like you're going loosey goosey, let's just, fly by the seat of our pants. Right? You're saying, I want to do this, and let's make sure all the emergency doors are shut and everyone's got their seatbelts on before we take off, right?
Right.
I
And
love it.
at some point you're going to have turbulence. All right, we'll keep going with that analogy. I love
Yeah.
it. There's going to be turbulence along the way, without a doubt. But if you've got as much as you can be thinking through in place and you've thought through it, it's going to give the people around you a little bit more peace. That, because I realized that, look, yeah, my wife was looking at me like, is this going to work? My kids are like, hey, is it going to work? We had 2 getting ready for college, one, another still in high school. There was a lot sort of riding on it, but letting them know that, yeah, here's what we're going to do and here's how I plan to go about it, that helps. But there was still a ton of other, unknowns and turbulence that came along the way that was just like unforeseen.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there a time when you were doing this, was there ever a time where you came up against a challenge that you thought, this is tough, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this work, or how am I going to make this work? And how did you work through that?
Oh yeah. It was literally when I jumped from the plane. And again, being methodical and a planner and being responsible, I had lined up handshakes with 6 people who said, hey, when you go ahead and pull the ripcord, we'll be with you, that bring you on to do some consulting work with us, do this, that, and the other. Because I needed that underlying cash flow. I never knew what the heck cash flow was. I mean, 25 years, I got the biweekly steady showing up in my bank account, whether I was good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh my gosh. Okay. So had those 6 lined up, Denise. I'm feeling good. I jump out, and it's like a week and a half in, and I'm following up with these people. Denise, how many of them do you think came through?
I'd like to say half.
All right. Because you're an optimist. That's why. No, I'll tell you honestly, it was a round number.
Wow.
Round number. None of them. And that was that wake up moment where I was like, oh crap. Okay, this just got real. And I had to sit down with my wife, and we had a runway of savings, but the way I felt I had it worked out in my plan was that, we wouldn't have to tap into that. So right away, my wife said, well, babe, what do we do when we hit this date in X months? What do we do then? And I told her what probably no partner wants to hear when you're out starting something new. I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said, look, I'll drive for Uber. I'll go to Lowe's. Whatever I've got to do, I'll figure it out. But here's what I didn't know with all of my being, Denise, was that if I focused on that date out here, I was focusing on the wrong thing. See, all I was able to really do with my intention, my energy, my effort, my work was to focus on today, being in the present today. And I really believe that if I did everything I could do today to build this business, to build my material, to continue to follow up and do it again the next day and do it again the next day and the day after that. Okay. I really believe that when we got to this date down the road, that it was going to be fine.
Yeah.
And sure enough, with that, I did. I ended up landing anchor clients and getting work going before that date even hit. But that didn't come without a couple of 72-hour stretches of being up, trying to figure things out, because that's just what you had to do.
Yeah. Fear can definitely be a driver.
It's a hell of a motivator, but I wouldn't suggest living in that space all the time.
Right, exactly. It's never good to stay in that space. But the thing that I think is so important that you talked about was focusing on the right thing. Yeah. Right? We waste so much energy, mental energy, emotional energy, and really it turns into physical energy when we're focusing on the thing that we're afraid of, or focusing on the thing that we don't want to happen. It becomes a distraction. And the only thing it does is ruin the present moment. So the fact that you are aware of that, and use that as a mentality moving forward, I think is incredibly important, but also speaks to why I think you're so successful, because you stay in the moment and you create that positive energy, that mindset that is not going to distract you from achieving those goals or working toward the things that you want to attract in your life, right? That law of attraction, right?
It is, yeah, and I appreciate that. I'm grateful. This when you're, and this yourself, when you're out being a creator, when you're out there trying to share a message, to create relevance and impact and value, it can be lonely work. It can, people see the highlight reels and the YouTube videos and the stuff on LinkedIn, and it's all important stuff. That's the output of the work. Several years ago, I took my daughter to a National Speakers Association gathering because there was a speaker there that I wanted her to meet, and she was 14 at the time. And I wanted her to meet the speaker and hear the message. It was about building your speaking business, because the reality is that most speakers do it part-time because they don't really have a full business plan built around what they're going to do. Anyhow, so we go through the meeting, go through the talk, and as we're leaving, I asked my daughter, I said, "Hey, babe, what'd you think about that? What'd you take away from that message?" And Denise, it blew me away, because again, she's a 14-year-old young lady, and she looked at me and she said, "Dad, I never realized how hard you have to work before you get to do the thing you love."
Wow. That's powerful, right?
It blew me away. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, baby, if you can just hold on to that, you will go so far in this life, because it's true. What it takes to do the thing you love takes a lot of work. So people think that, they fall in love with the idea of what it would be like to do something different, and live this life, or not live the life they're living now, but don't realize the work it's going to take to get there. And a lot of that, honestly, and Denise, this better than anybody else, it starts here in the headspace. It absolutely does.
Yep. And no one's an overnight success. That is a fallacy, right? Yeah. That overnight success, just because they met that one person on that date that brought them into the limelight, they've probably been working for 10, 15, 20 years before that, building their craft, right?
Absolutely. There's a quote that I heard before. So I had mentioned before, I spent a good 3.5 years getting ready for this, this massive shift in my life. And a lot of it was recognizing not only what I was feeding myself physically, but also emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and because it matters. It absolutely matters. And there was a quote that I heard that really spoke to me, and I leaned into during this, and still do, is that most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 5. Wow. And I think that really speaks to the power of the compounding momentum by showing up and doing the work and the impact that can make,
Absolutely. And when you think about all that you've done, if you look back over the last, let's see, since 2006 is when you got the spark, 2017 is when you kind of.
Yeah. Really... So February 15th, 2018 was my last day with the race team before I pivoted. Yeah. So we're coming up on, it'll be 3 years.
3 years, right? In February. It probably doesn't feel like that, right? Or maybe it feels like 10. Who knows?
Sometimes it feels like 10. Sometimes it feels like a blink of an eye, but
So looking back, would you change anything that you did?
Wow. No, 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 because if I did that, that means that I don't believe that the steps that I took or the experiences that I had weren't setting me up for something bigger and better.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I trust and I believe that that was all the things that I did and were experienced were for a reason. Now, have I learned lessons that I will change and I will be better at down the road? Absolutely. That doesn't mean I want to change what was behind me. I'm a big believer that there's no emotion and no experience ever wasted. It just depends on how we look at it, because the experience is going to sharpen our saw and the emotion is going to really forge our resolve.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I believe everything happens for a reason. You are where you are, and you're always exactly where you need to be in order to learn
Yep.
what it is that you need to learn and do what it is that you need to do. And the other thing that and I'm curious to get your take on this, but I think we've been kind of talking around this too, is that I think you have certainly need to do educational things to kind of bring knowledge into our world, but I always believe wholeheartedly that you have everything you need to to be successful inside of you already. It's just a matter of bringing it out. And I'm curious what your take on that is.
I've got a take on that I believe wholeheartedly in. And it may go on the side of woohoo, but I'm going to go there with you. But I I believe that before we took our first breath on this earth, that there was a soul mission. There was a purpose of why we were put here, that we agreed to with Creator or whomever you may believe that being or entity to be in your life or your world. But because we have free will in this life and in this world, we also knew that it was a 50-50 shot whether we would actually be able to do that, accomplish that mission. Because once we entered this world and started looking at it through these earthly eyes that often lead with fear and anxiety and lack, fear of judgment, etc., failure, observing other people's failures and playing in that safe zone, that we knew that we may not get to fulfill that mission. So I also believe, though, that there are points in our lives that become waypoints and guides that open our eyes to say, hey, you have it in your DNA. And this gets back to what you were saying, Denise, like what we're made of. And when I say DNA, I don't mean like your X and Y chromosomes. These are your divine natural abilities, the things that you do that only you can do the way you do it, that impact people that in a way that no one else can, right? It's like what you do, Denise, on these shows or in your practice. It's like breathing for you. You just do it. And it's beautiful. We all have those things. We just have to take the time to recognize what they are, and then how do we put them into play. It doesn't mean you quit your job,
Right.
to then go out and save the world. I've got a good buddy of mine who's an amazingly successful banker, but he uses the money that he makes from that career as fuel to build orphanages in third world countries.
Wow.
Right. So the point is, you don't have to like pack it all up and, go to Sri Lanka. You just figure out what it is that you have to give and do that's yours and put it into play.
Right. And not get sidetracked, by the things that are around you that bring you fear, or that might make you feel inadequate, or that make you feel judged, like you said before. I think.
Yeah, and the people, right? It's just as much the surrounding and circumstances as it is what's going on in your head. I mean, more often than not, the external feeds the internal, or we find that the external validates the internal, thoughts on those things. So it's really important to recognize who you're surrounding yourself with, and recognize that, what, in order to, and this was tough for me because there were some people in my circle from my previous career that are really no longer in my circle, because there had to be space and room for new people to come in this next chapter.
Yeah. And you have to make that space, right? You've got to make those choices, and you have to understand that we all have a bandwidth, right? And
It's only so much.
Yeah, and you have to have the people in your inner circle that are feeding that energy in a positive way, that
Yeah.
are adding value to your life. So it's like you said, it's so important because we talk about mindset here, but the people around us, the situations around us all impact our mindset. And so it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. And so you draw to you what's in your mind, but you can also be impacted by what's around you. So
Yeah.
finding that balance, right? Critically important.
It's finding the balance, and I'm a big believer in the power of choice, and more than just choice, but intentional choice. You
Yeah.
know, there's yeah, I mentioned earlier the faith and fear example. Well, it's really no different than anxiousness and empowerment. They're really they're two places we can find ourselves that will only be defined by our choice. We can choose to sit in a place of anxiousness, which is fear and unknown and what ifs,
Mhm.
or we can choose to live in a place of empowerment where we believe that with our skills and the work we're doing and the things that we have in front of us, that we can put something into play.
Absolutely. I love it. Perfectly said. It's um I think for what we're talking about today and everything that you're all about, Mike, it's really kind of finding that inner energy that you have, finding your focus and
Mhm.
understanding how the world around you is impacting you as you're moving along,
Yeah.
making adjustments along the way, pivoting when you need to, but staying true to yourself and staying true to your passion. And I
Yeah.
love that message.
Yeah, yeah, and to the shifts, that's a great point because we're living at a time right now of just seismic shifts in our lives, and I've found throughout my career working with championship drivers and teams that the best drivers in the world know when, where, and how to shift on the racetrack with their vehicles, but not only in their vehicle, but in their helmets, their mindset, in order to stay competitive and stay in the race. We're no different. We're
Yeah.
no different.
Right. Quick thinking, quick adjusting when you
Yep.
need to. Sometimes it's intuitive,
Yep.
sometimes it's planned, and you just have to know the difference between the two, right?
Good. Well, it is, but then also recognizing that it's something you've got to do. You've got to
Yeah.
step into it.
Yeah.
There was another phrase you may have seen this in some of my messages, or even in my email. I'll end with "keep digging," and that phrase to me that was something we used in racing. During the toughest parts of the race, the longest parts of the race, we'd often hear the crew chief say to the driver over the radio, "Hey man, just keep digging." Just
Yeah.
keep digging. We'd say it to the crew members, during pit stops, keep digging. Meaning, look, this sucks right now. This is tough right now, but keep digging, stay in it.
Hmm.
And I love that just because of the message in it and the mindset of, look, embrace the suck for right now and we'll get through it. But
Yeah.
shortly after I made my pivot and shift out, I came across this phrase that took on a whole new meaning for me, and I absolutely love it. And it basically said this, that, I've seen the creator move mountains, but I still have to pick up my shovel every single day and dig.
Mm.
And that's the other part of this. There's the preparation, there's the mindset, and then there's showing up every day willing to pick up your shovel and dig. Too many people sit back and say, "Okay, I did it. I quit
Yeah.
my job," or
Right.
"I did this. Now where is it?"
Right. Right. Where I thought this stuff was going to come to me, right? It was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And 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 speaking of reputation shift, the name of your book is Reputation Shift, right?
Well, funny you should say that. Yes. Thank you. Here's the shameless plug right here, and also,
Made a little banner for you down there too.
thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
That's great. And it's on audio, isn't it on audiobook now too?
It is, yes. So you can get the hard the soft cover book on Amazon or my website. You can also, yes, I spent time in the studio and I recorded the book there. You can get that on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon as well. So
Awesome.
however you want to take it along, I've been just so grateful for the feedback that I've received on it. Because I wrote it in a way that we as individuals in this hyper-connected world could really be intentionally working on our reputation, one of our greatest assets,
Yeah.
when you think about the doors it can open up or the doors it can keep padlocked shut and we wouldn't even know about it.
Yeah.
So I unpack 5 actionable strategies and tips in here of what we can do on a daily basis to strengthen and protect and build our reputations, all coming from my stories and experiences in motorsports. So it's a fun, fun stories, and reflection points in here as well.
Awesome. And so if any of you are looking to really kind of understand what drives Mike Mooney and how he's been successful, definitely pick up this book, because you will get some amazing tips and some wonderfully valuable information about how to think about your world, your life, your work, your passion, and moving forward. So Reputation Shift is a book you all should go out and get. If you want more information from Mike, you can reach him at mike@mikemooney.com. You can also connect with him on LinkedIn. This is his, well, I have a long LinkedIn address too, but hey, just hit pause for a second, copy that baby down. Again, Mike Mooney from Mooney Consulting Group. I just want to thank you so much for being here, for your insight, for your energy, just for saying yes to coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful discussion.
Denise, thank you. I'm grateful for your time and interest, quite honestly, and thankful for the work you're doing. So thank you so much. I love the conversation as always, and for the folks who are doing, thank you for taking the time to stick with us and listen to us. And if I can be a resource to you or of any value, please reach out to me. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. And if you like this podcast and you want to hear more, please hit the subscribe button below and tune in next week. And thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody.